Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boomer Bust channel, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry, and today I have to say we should start Justin Fields this year. And I understand. Terry, you said that we shouldn't start him and all that. And I get that. I understand that my initial thought and my overall philosophy with quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks, is that you should sit them. And I said after the first preseason game that I would be lying if I said I wasn't being swayed a little bit, because I was. And I think just not even particularly tonight or the last preseason game, but just in general, I've watched the kind of game that Justin Fields has against NFL teams, and I felt that we should go forward with starting him. And I really cemented that tonight. And so I think this for a few reasons. And honestly, the first reason isn't really what people want to hear, but it's what I feel. And that's that we're not going to be ultra, contenders this year. And that's not to say that we don't have a chance, but if you've been listening for a while, I always talk about teams in different areas and as far as their competitiveness. And I've always said, or not always, but since the Nagy era, which is around when I started, I've said we've been at this point where we can compete with teams, but we need lucky breaks for us to overcome. And so I don't think we are some overall super competitive team or I should say, overall team that's contending for the championship. I do think we have a solid enough roster to go out there and give a fighting chance. And with some things going our way, we can win. But that's really it. And honestly, at least looking at the roster right now, I think we took a step backwards. And so I don't believe that we are a team that's going to go out and have high Super Bowl chances. So that's number one. Number two, on top of that, we have one of the tougher schedules in the league. And so this is going to be a challenge, even more so than you think about the first year with Nagy, which I talked about. Even before the season started, I was like, you know what? The schedule isn't that competitive. And with injuries on top of that, I think we showed that schedule really did not push us to show the real Bears. And you got to a point in the playoffs, although I think the Eagles wasn't, top-notch competition, even though I know they went on to to win. But still, I just really felt like we weren't a team that was playoff ready, as the record would indicate, because of who we played. And so then we went on years to show kind of who we really were, with pretty much the same team. And so I think looking at it this year with one of the tougher schedules, like, we don't need to kid ourselves. We've seen who we are. And with this tough schedule, it's going to be harder for us to squeak in, even with the extra game, even with the extra playoff spot. It's going to be harder for us to squeak in and, come through the back door. And it's not to say that we won't make the playoffs in the last spot. It's very possible, because the other part of this is you got to look at our division. You have the Detroit Lions that are completely reshuffling. You have the Minnesota Vikings, which with a lot of talent still feels like a shell of themselves, and a team that I think we could beat. Green Bay is by far the class of the NFC North. And so we have a chance to, get some division wins. And so we could backdoor it again. Not saying we can't, but overall, it's going to be less opportunity to kind of, get lucky. And so with that, I just overall don't know if we are a championship contender. And I don't mean like a favorite. I mean like even a dark horse. Like last year, I felt, okay, the Bears, we got the last playoff spot, but I never thought that we could actually win the Super Bowl. And I feel the same way this year. And I think most people that know us as a team feel that way. And so if that's the case to me, then why not give Justin Fields the start? Now, the biggest thing when we're talking about starting rookie quarterbacks for me is two things. Number one is the routine of the NFL. Now, look, if you play for a school like Ohio State, top caliber Big Ten, or Alabama, top caliber SEC, all that, you're going to get a really strict regiment. And I wouldn't even say that the NFL is as strict as college because you got other things like classes and whatnot. But you're going to get a pretty strict regiment and be put in a situation where you need to be professional. And the team is pretty much going to guide you. Now, in the NFL, it's kind of like college for a regular student because now you got a little more free time. Now you don't necessarily have people scheduling every second of the day. So you got to figure out what to do in the free time. You got to figure out how to make that work and get to practice and all that. And we see players that put a lot of that extra time into working on their body, working on different skill sets. We see some that do it with music, some that pursue movies or business. And so it's a lot more freedom, and you got to really get used to the schedule because athletes are creatures of habit. So I think one of the biggest things that you gain from sitting is learning the routine of a starting quarterback, because you hear many backup quarterbacks tell you it's not the same. When you know you're not starting the game, you don't prepare the same way. And so as a starting quarterback, getting into the routine of what you should be looking for in film sessions, what you should be looking for in practice, what you should be doing on certain days, because a lot of players just really thrive off that routine. And so I think one of the biggest boosts you get from sitting is getting to watch the starting quarterback, and not even the starting quarterback, but learning the schedule, how it is to play more games than you did in college, how it is to understand the ebbs and flow of practice. And you just, by the end of the year, if you haven't played, you got a chance to observe and really understand just the flow of the season. The second thing is being able to understand coverages. And it's not to say, obviously, that every player is at the same level when they come in with coverages. And it's not even to say Justin Fields is great at it. But one of the benefits you get is that you get to watch the film after each game. You get to see the offense that you run, and you see the quarterback make a decision, and you get to put yourself in their shoes and say, would I have made that decision? Or what am I looking at? What am I keying? What is it that I'm seeing in this defense, and what would I have done? Would I have made that same mistake? Would I have made that same big play? And you get to see a full season of NFL coverage and really understand kind of what people are doing, especially your division. And so those are the two main pluses of sitting. Now, the reason I think Justin Fields is ready, again, you got a player coming from a team like Ohio State where it's going to be a little more intense, and you're going to understand the commitment a little more. But overall, I think if you really watch Justin Fields like off the field and kind of understand him, he's not really he's not wrapped up in other stuff. And it's not to say that that's wrong. Like, I know some people made a big deal about Trevor Lawrence comments and just other players in the past that aren't football all the time. And yes, some don't work out, but some really do. It's not that. I don't think a quarterback has to be one way or the other. But in Fields' case, he is the type of player that he isolates himself. Like, if you watch, you see his dad and his family really being there a lot with him at Ohio State. Him and his dad went on I believe it was the vegan diet. And I think he said he's going to stick with being vegan. He likes the way he feels. But like, they did that together, cooking together, and it reminds me of Michael Jordan early on. If you watch the Last Dance documentary, he's more to himself. He's more like really dedicated to the game and all that stuff. And so it's not that he's really plugged into everything that's outside of football. And again, it's not right or wrong, but I think has the type of mindset where he doesn't need to adjust to the NFL schedule as much. He doesn't need to adjust to football being a full-time job. Again, you got a top tier program. That's kind of what you're there for. Even though football, they get more education, it's just overall, that you're there to prepare yourself to go to NFL, and he's got practice with that. And I just think he has the personality type where he understands and he knows that he's going to give his effort to things outside of practice time and whatever. He's going to give it back to the team. And not to say that you have to, but again, I just think he's wired that way. The second thing with the NFL coverages and everything, I still think that's a benefit. I still think, hell or high water, Justin Fields getting to sit back and watch another quarterback make decisions and figure out coverages is going to help. I don't think he's top notch at reading defenses and all that. And we'll see what happens when he's got pressure in his face and he's got disguising defenses. But I do think that, kind of going back to my point about us not being contenders, I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to really go into a tough schedule and see what some of the best of the NFL has to offer and taking those lumps. Again, the biggest thing that fans don't really understand is the psychology of it all. You have some players that just react differently to adversity. So some quarterbacks, despite, all the other parts, the mechanics of the position, they're going to fold mentally if they have adversity early on. Or if, they get into bad habits. You got a team with a not so great O-line. You got a team with not good receivers. Whatever it is, they can get into bad habits. They can not like the negative attention, and they can fold easily. Some can handle it. And I'm not claiming I know which one Justin Fields is. But what I'm saying is I think just what he brings to the table and what we have as an offense and just overall as a situation, I think it's okay to take that lumps. And now me, obviously, I am taking some type of assumption that he's able to handle those lumps. But I think that's the best for the team. I think you let him take those lumps and you let him grow from it. And so I really think that Justin Fields and the way the team is set up, he can go out there, he can play, he can see the coverage, he can learn from it and get better rather than regress into a shell. Now, I could be wrong. We'll see. But I think from what I've seen so far and where we are, that's what we should do. Andy Dalton is there, but he's a backup. I mean, he was highly sought after when he left the Bengals as a backup. A backup quarterback is a very important position right now in the NFL. And we saw what he could do as a starter with the Bengals. Obviously, it's different in different situations, but we know what Andy Dalton is. And maybe he won't be happy, but I think he's the type of person that can be a supportive backup. And so I think that's his natural position. And even though it'd be nice or I wouldn't say it'd be nice. I originally thought it would be nice for Justin Fields to kind of watch Andy Dalton go through it. I don't know if I see the benefit as much anymore. And really all of this is a praise for Justin Fields. I do think he's shown more poise in the pocket. He's shown some patience. He's shown some energy. Just things that I think he can build on rather than regressing and, falling into himself. And so I'd rather honestly let him go out there and get better and see where the chips fall. Now, I know the biggest thing that's holding all this back is the fact that Ryan Pace and Nagy on the hot seat. And they can't afford to say, hey, we're not contenders this year. They're going to, as much as they can, try to play to win, and that's fine. And I don't necessarily know if Fields or Dalton gives us a better chance to win, but I know that Dalton is a more known commodity, and that's usually what, coaches want. But eventually the rookie gets in because of the excitement that they bring. And I'm not leaning towards one of those or the other. I think, again, just about the team, whether Nagy or Pace come back or not, we're not in that situation. And I just think it'd be good for Justin Fields to get out there and to start to acclimate. So I've kind of changed my position, and that's where I'm at. So let me know what you think. Go to the comment section, share it around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.